In the name of God. The Tale of the Foolish and Wise. Once upon a time, a man who possessed wisdom and virtue but had no share of worldly wealth was traveling on foot from one town to another. Along the way, he came across a man whose camel was carrying 2 large sacks, and the man himself was sitting on top of the load, singing as he traveled. The man, walking on foot, thought to himself, "Although I am tired and walking, and this man is riding and lively, at least I have found a companion. I can talk to him and stay entertained, and by talking together I can make the long road feel shorter." When he reached the camel rider, he greeted him and said, "Blessings on your journey. I was happy when I saw you. Walking and being tired are one thing, but I was mostly bored of being alone. Now, as long as we are together, we can talk along the way." The rider said, "I was also singing to myself out of loneliness. But walking or riding makes no difference. In fact, being on foot is even better. When you don't own a camel, your camel never gets sick, your camel is never stolen, and your camel never runs away. And when you reach home, you don't worry about hay and barley for horses, cows, or camels. You're free and comfortable." The man on foot said, "Well, I don't know. That's not entirely true. Of course, someone who has no donkey must carry his own load, and if the road is long, he must trouble his own feet. But still, I don't dislike walking. When I think that I carry the weight of my own body myself, it makes me happy. But if I ride a camel, I feel as if the camel beneath me is complaining about me." The rider laughed and said, "Well, that's one way of thinking. People who don't own a camel say such things. Otherwise, God created the camel to carry loads and eat thorns. If you don't ride it, someone else will." The man on foot said, "Anyway, you have a good camel. May God keep it for you. It seems the load is heavy too. What's inside these sacks?" The rider said, "One of them is full of wheat that I'm bringing home from the farm, and the other one is full of sand and gravel." The man on foot was surprised and asked, "What did you say? Full of sand and gravel? Why are you taking that home? Isn't there sand in the city?" The rider said, "I'm not taking the sand for any use. But since the wheat was only enough for one side of the load and wouldn't stay balanced on the camel, I filled the other sack with sand so that there would be 2 equal loads, and I could tie them on the camel and sit on top." The man on foot burst into loud laughter and said, "What an invention, brother! Instead of doing this, you could have divided the wheat into 2 parts, put it in 2 sacks, made 2 balanced loads, tied them to the camel, and sat on top. The camel's load would have been lighter, and loading and unloading the sacks would have been much easier." The camel rider, who was a simple and somewhat foolish man, said, "Bravo! Well done! I thought and thought about what to do, but my mind never reached this. It seems you are a very intelligent, wise, and noble man." The man on foot said, "I don't know. No, this matter is very simple." The rider felt pity for the man on foot and thought to himself, "It would be good to let this knowledgeable man ride as well." But suddenly a thought came to him, and he asked the man on foot, "Well then, O wise and learned man, tell me honestly, who are you? With such intelligence and understanding, you must be a minister, a governor, a king, a prince, something of that sort. You must be a very important person." The man on foot said, "No, I am an ordinary person like everyone else. I am not very learned. You can see my condition for yourself. My clothes are simple and just like most people's." The rider said, "That can't be. With all this intelligence and wisdom, you must have a lot of money that keeps you content and carefree. Otherwise, you couldn't have solved the wheat problem so easily." The man on foot said, "On the contrary, I don't have a single star in the 7 skies. And as I'm walking with you now, I don't even know where I will work tomorrow or what I will eat." The rider said, "You must have a shop, and even if you don't have cash, you must have plenty of goods. What difference does it make? What matters is that a wise man should be capable, wealthy, and fortunate." The man on foot said, "That's not the case either. If I had a shop, I would be sitting in it doing business, not walking through this desert on foot." The rider said, "It's clear you don't want to reveal who you really are. You might have camels, cows, and sheep, and are just checking on your shepherds. In any case, a wise and intelligent man like you must be doing very well." The man on foot said, "You know, brother, I have no horse, no camel, no cow, no sheep, no shop, and no money. Of course, I'm not a miserable person, but I own nothing in this world. My body is healthy, I work, and I earn my bread. Today I am jobless and heading to the nearby town looking for work. And the intelligence and understanding you speak of bring me nothing more than a simple life, nothing else." The rider said, "So you're quite a strange and foolish man then, you poor fellow. I, with 1 sack of wheat and 1 sack of sand, and with the ignorance and lack of sense you can clearly see, own 10 camels, 100 sheep, 50 cows, 2 farms, a granary full of wheat. I have maidservants and servants. I have honor and respect. I have shoes, clothes, 10 rooms full of furnishings, and when I enter a gathering, people bow and greet me. I live comfortably. In the city, I am a member of the Reform Council, and at home I have a room full of handwritten books that even the master of the neighborhood envies, and I have all of this with my little bit of sense. So you, who know how to load wheat properly and make things easy, have nothing at all? Then what is the use of such intelligence and wisdom? If this is what sense is, nothing but worry and imagination, I'd rather not have it even in 70 years. By the way, I do need a worker on my farm, but I'm afraid of you. Go away from me quickly. I fear your misfortune may affect me too. Useless intelligence is bad luck." The man on foot said, "I will go. But after all you have said, to me you are a foolish, stupid, and miserable man. Everything you listed has been bought with money, and you yourself are nothing but an idiot. I would never want to be like you." The man on foot separated from the rider and went another way. As fate would have it, when the rider had gone a little farther, 2 other camel riders appeared. They were bandit thieves, and they asked him, "What do you have in your camel's load?" The rider said, "Just a moment ago someone was with me, and he went that way. He said I am a foolish and miserable man, and that's exactly what I am, and my camel's load is exactly what it is." One of the thieves drew a knife and tore open one of the sacks to see what was inside. By chance, that sack was full of gravel. As a result, the thieves gave him a few slaps, left him alone, and went away, saying, "Truly, what a foolish man you are! The desert is full of gravel, and you load gravel onto your camel?" Then the camel rider, whose sack of wheat had been saved from the thieves by this coincidence, smiled with joy and said, "Bravo to my own foolishness for loading gravel. Otherwise, my wheat would have been lost." After that, people saw that whenever this man loaded even 100 camels, he would put wheat on one side and gravel on the other. He listened to no one's advice and accepted no one's words. And in response to those who laughed at his intelligence, he would say, "I know something that you do not know." The camel rider became the laughingstock of the people, but in his heart he was pleased, knowing something that others did not know, and that he had camels, a farm, and everything else he needed. And please, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss more stories like this. If you enjoyed the video, we'd really appreciate your support with a like and a comment.